A ghost from the past emerges. The Galactic Council was never prepared for this day. For centuries, peace had ruled the stars. The great empires had settled their disputes, and the fear of war had faded. Trade routes thrived, civilizations flourished, and the memory of past conflicts had turned into mere legends. But legends, it seemed, could come back to life. At the farthest edge of the Perseus Rift, a massive warship had appeared from the void. It drifted slowly, its dark metal hull covered in ancient battle scars. The scanners of nearby patrol ships immediately recognized the vessel, and panic spread across communication networks. The ship's name sent a wave of fear through every empire. UNS Valiant, the legendary human warship that had vanished centuries ago. The signal that shook the galaxy. The first report came from an outpost near Zorvax-controlled space. The station's commander, Admiral Kavor, an old war veteran, could not believe his eyes when he saw the readings. "This is a mistake," he growled, his claws tapping against the control panel. The Valiant was destroyed in the last war. His officers hesitated. The readings were clear. The ship was real, and it was moving. A distress signal was sent across the galaxy. Every major faction received the same message: the UNS Valiant has returned. The Galactic Council called for an emergency meeting. Leaders from dozens of species gathered in the Grand Chamber, their voices filled with confusion and fear. "This is impossible," said the Kilari representative, her blue scales shimmering under the council lights. "Humanity is gone. Their fleets disappeared long ago." "The warship is real," replied a grim-faced Volderi commander. "The question is, why has it returned now?" No one had an answer. A silent threat. The warship drifted, silent and unreadable. No distress signals, no hails, no attempts to communicate. But it was not dead. Its weapon systems were online, shields at full power. The UNS Valiant was awake, and it was heading toward the core worlds. The Zorvax Imperium, the empire that had once betrayed humanity, was the first to react. Their High Chancellor, Lord Salvora, ordered an immediate response. "We must destroy it before it reaches human space," he declared. "We do not know what it carries." Others hesitated. If humans had somehow survived, attacking their ancient warship could be seen as an act of war. But the Zorvax knew something the others did not. The last time the UNS Valiant was seen, it was carrying something deadly, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Phantom moves. The warship moved past the first line of border defenses without firing a single shot. The station commanders watched it pass in eerie silence, unable to decide if they should engage or let it go. Whispers spread across the galaxy. Some called it a ghost ship. Others believed it was an AI-controlled relic carrying out its last orders. Then suddenly, the UNS Valiant altered its course. Instead of heading toward the human sector, it was now moving straight toward Zorvax space. The Imperium panicked. Warships were deployed in haste, battle stations prepared for an unknown threat. Every gun, every missile, every fleet in their control was locked onto the ancient warship. A final message was sent to the UNS Valiant: "Identify yourself or be destroyed." The ship finally responded. A deep mechanical voice echoed through every Zorvax channel, cold and unshaken. "Humanity does not forget. The UNS Valiant has returned to finish its mission." The galaxy held its breath. What mission? No one knew the answer. But one thing was certain: the return of this warship would change everything. The Council's dilemma. Panic spread across the Galactic Council chambers like wildfire. The return of the UNS Valiant was no longer just a mystery. It was a crisis. The holographic map in the center of the chamber showed the warship's trajectory. It was heading straight for Zorvax space. For centuries, the Zorvax Imperium had feared the return of humanity's vengeance. They had been the ones who betrayed the last human fleets, ensuring their downfall. And now, a warship from that forgotten era had come back. This cannot be a coincidence. High Chancellor Exalvora slammed his clawed hand against the table. The Valiant carries unfinished business. We must destroy it immediately." The Kilari representative narrowed her eyes. Attacking an unknown entity without provocation, that would be a declaration of war. Are you truly ready for that? The Zorvax leader bared his fangs. If we wait, it may already be too late. But not everyone was convinced. The warship has not attacked anyone, the Voldari general pointed out. It could be a relic, a ship without a crew, simply following old orders. Or worse, a shadowy figure from the Urdax consortium murmured. What if it is not alone? A heavy silence fell over the room. The thought was terrifying. What if the UNS Valiant was just the first of many? What if humanity had survived in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to return? The council was divided. Some wanted to send a diplomatic fleet to intercept the warship, while others argued for an immediate military response. Finally, a decision was made. A task force of elite ships from multiple factions would be dispatched. Their mission: intercept the UNS Valiant, make contact if possible, and stop it if necessary. The fleet departed within the hour. But no one knew what awaited them. A fleet in motion. The intercept fleet approached the Perseus Rift, closing in on the Valiant's position. Their ships were smaller and faster, designed for high-speed combat. The Valiant, however, was a fortress, an ancient warship built during humanity's final war. Captain Raylos Vec, leader of the intercept fleet, stared at the massive vessel through his view screen. "It's beautiful," one of his officers whispered. The warship floated in silence, a relic of a forgotten time. Its hull bore scars from ancient battles, yet it moved with purpose. Raylos opened a communication channel. "This is Captain Raylos of the Galactic Council Task Force. UNS Valiant, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself." No response. He tried again. "Repeat, this is Captain Raylos. If you do not respond, we will assume you are a hostile entity." Still silence. Then, without warning, the Valiant's engines roared to life. It turned sharply, heading toward the Zorvax border at full speed. The fleet scrambled. "Sir, it's accelerating. Should we engage?" Raylos hesitated. Was the warship truly an enemy, or was it simply trying to reach its final destination? Before he could decide, the Valiant's defense systems activated. Laser turrets rotated into position. Missile bays opened. The ship was ready for battle. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the fleet's communication systems. "Mission priority confirmed. Stand down or be eliminated." Tension filled the air. The intercept fleet had mere seconds to decide. Fight or let it go. And in that moment, the warship's ancient past collided with the present. The galaxy's greatest mystery was about to become its greatest nightmare. The silent approach. The Galactic Council's intercept fleet had seconds to react. The UNS Valiant was accelerating toward Zorvax space, its weapons armed but not firing. It was not attacking, but it was not stopping either. Captain Raylos Vec gripped the armrest of his command chair, his reptilian eyes locked on the warship's trajectory. "Orders, sir," one of his officers asked, tension thick in the air. Raylos took a slow breath. If they opened fire, they would risk starting a war with humanity, if it still existed. But if they let the warship through, the Zorvax Imperium would consider it an act of betrayal. "Hold formation," he said. "Do not engage unless fired upon." Across the fleet, ships adjusted their positions, forming a barrier between the Valiant and its path. Then, something strange happened. The warship slowed down. Its powerful thrusters dimmed, and its approach became steady and controlled. It was as if the ancient ship was watching them, waiting to see what they would do next. A message from the void. "Try sending another hail," Raylos ordered. The comms officer activated the transmission. "UNS Valiant, you are entering restricted space. Identify your mission, or we will be forced to take action." For a moment, only silence answered them. Then, a deep mechanical voice came through the speakers. Humanity does not forget. The UNS Valiant has returned to finish its mission. The word sent chills through the entire bridge crew. Raylo's heart pounded. What mission? What did this ancient ship want? Suddenly, alarms blared across the fleet. Sir, the Valiant has activated its scanning systems. It's targeting only Zorvax ships. Raylo's blood ran cold. It was looking for something. Or someone. The Zorvax's fear. On the other side of the fleet, the Zorvax flagship, the Dominance, received the same message. Inside the dark, high-tech command center, High Chancellor Exalvora clenched his fists. His worst fear had come true. The Valiant. It remembers, he muttered. His advisors exchanged nervous glances. What are your orders, Chancellor? Zalvora's mind raced. He knew the history of this ship better than anyone. The Zorvax Imperium had betrayed the last human fleet, ambushing them in a final battle that wiped out their forces. The Valiant had been lost after that battle. But now, centuries later, it had returned. And it was coming for them. Destroy it, Zalvora ordered. Destroy it now. His fleet wasted no time. Within seconds, dozens of Zorvax warships powered up their weapons and launched the first attack. Bright beams of energy cut through space, streaking toward the UNS Valiant. The warship did not dodge. It did not try to evade the fire. Instead, its shields absorbed every hit, glowing with an eerie blue light. Then it responded. The warship awakens. The moment the Zorvax fired, the UNS Valiant's systems came alive. Massive turrets rotated with mechanical precision, locking onto enemy targets. Missile bays opened, revealing ancient yet deadly warheads. In less than a second, it fired a single shot. A bright blue energy beam ripped through space, tearing through a Zorvax battleship like it was made of paper. A second shot followed. Then a third. The Zorvax fleet collapsed in chaos. Their most advanced warships were being destroyed in an instant. This is impossible, an admiral screamed. That ship is thousands of years old. And yet, here it was, unstoppable, invincible, unrelenting. The warship wasn't just defending itself. It was hunting them, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it. A dangerous decision. Watching from the intercept fleet, Captain Raylos Vec made a fateful choice. If we don't act, the Valiant will wipe them out, one of his officers said. Maybe that's what they deserve, another muttered. Raylos gritted his teeth. If the Valiant had returned for revenge, then the Zorvax Imperium was doomed. But if it had a greater purpose, someone needed to find out why. We're going in, Raylos ordered. Full speed ahead. Do not engage unless fired upon. His fleet surged forward, closing the distance between them and humanity's last warship. As they approached, the Valiant's main communication channel opened again. A final message crackled through their systems. The mission is not over. Humanity's justice will be served. Raylo's eyes widened. Justice. What exactly had the Zorvax done all those centuries ago? And more importantly, was the Valiant truly the only ship that had returned? The voice of the past. The UNS Valiant hovered in the silent void, its ancient hull illuminated by the dying flames of the Zorvax fleet. Wreckage floated aimlessly, shattered remnants of warships that once ruled the galaxy. But the Valiant was not finished. Inside the Galactic Council's intercept fleet, Captain Raylos Vec watched in disbelief. This isn't just an attack, one of his officers stammered. It's an execution. Raylos clenched his jaw. The Valiant had made no demands, had spoken no warnings beyond its cryptic message. It wasn't negotiating. It was carrying out an old mission, as if time itself had never moved forward for it. A ghost from the past, still following orders from a war long lost. The Zorvax Imperium had always told the galaxy that humanity had been the aggressors in the last war, that humans had been reckless, dangerous, and self-destructive. But if the Valiant had returned for justice, then maybe the Zorvax had lied. The Zorvax's secret. On the damaged bridge of the Zorvax flagship, Dominance, High Chancellor Exalvora gripped his control panel, his face twisted in fear. "It's impossible," he muttered, watching his fleet burn. It was just a ship, a relic. But it wasn't. The UNS Valiant wasn't just attacking Zorvax forces. It was targeting specific ships, specific locations. As if it still remembered who had betrayed humanity. A realization struck Exalvora like a blade to the chest. "This isn't a random attack," he whispered. "It's a trial. A brutal, merciless trial of the guilty." His advisors turned to him in confusion. "What do you mean, Chancellor?" one asked. Exalvora swallowed hard. He could not let the truth escape. If the rest of the galaxy discovered what the Zorvax had done to humanity, their empire would crumble overnight. He forced himself to stay calm. "The Valiant is just an old war machine," he said coldly. "We can still destroy it." But deep down, he knew the truth. The Valiant wasn't just a machine. It knew. And it was coming for him next. The ancient message. Before another shot could be fired, the Valiant suddenly stopped moving. Its weapons fell silent. The intercept fleet held their breath. "What is it doing?" Raylos asked. His sensors officer studied the readings. "Sir, it's transmitting something." A moment later, a holographic transmission began broadcasting across all Galactic Council frequencies. The image flickered with static before settling on a human figure. A man in an old Earth military uniform. His face was haggard, scared, his eyes haunted yet determined. It was not a live feed. This message had been recorded centuries ago. The man took a slow breath, then spoke. "If you are seeing this, then the UNS Valiant has returned. And that means humanity is gone." A heavy silence fell across the fleet. Raylos felt a strange chill creep down his spine. The message continued. "The Zorvax Imperium betrayed us. They called us allies. And then they struck us from behind. Our fleets were destroyed, our home burned. And now, we are no more. But we are not forgotten." The image flickered, and the man's voice hardened. "This ship carries the last record of our people. The last truth of what was done to us. The last memory of humanity's final stand. And if this ship has returned, then justice will follow." The screen went black. Then, a final set of words appeared. "We are the ghosts of the fallen, and we will be avenged. The galaxy holds its breath." Captain Raylos exhaled, his mind racing. The last war had always been shrouded in secrecy. The Zorvax had claimed that humans had fallen due to their own greed and violence. But now, the truth was here, recorded, unchangeable, undeniable. The Galactic Council had believed they ruled in peace, in balance. But if the truth of humanity's betrayal got out, everything would change. Then, a new alert came through. "Sir," his officer called out, voice filled with disbelief. "We've detected movement." Raylos turned sharply. "What kind of movement?" The officer's face paled. "More ships." The sensors updated. Not one, not 10. Hundreds. Old, forgotten human warships, lost to history, now reawakening. They had been waiting. Waiting for the Valiant to return. Waiting for the final war to begin. The Zorvax's fear. The Galactic Council's intercept fleet stood frozen in place. The UNS Valiant remained motionless, as if satisfied with the broadcast of its ancient message. But now, the real nightmare had begun. From the depths of space, hundreds of signals appeared. Raylos watched the readings on his screen, his claws tightening into his chair. This can't be real," he muttered. One by one, human warships emerged from the void. Their hulls were old, scared by time, but their weapons were fully armed. Their engines burned with ancient fury, and their arrival sent a shockwave of fear across the Zorvax Imperium. Humanity's vengeance had not just returned. It had been waiting. Panic in the Zorvax Imperium. On the bridge of the Zorvax flagship, dominance, High Chancellor Galactic could barely breathe. "This is a trick," he hissed. "It must be. There's no way humans still exist." But the cold, hard truth was undeniable. Hundreds of human warships, some thought lost, others forgotten in deep space graveyards, had awakened. Their systems had reactivated as if triggered by the Valiant's return. Like a final failsafe, a hidden command set centuries ago, waiting for the right moment. And now, they were here. They'd been hiding, one of his officers whispered in horror, all this time, waiting for us to lower our guard. Zalvora knew what was coming next. The Zorvax Imperium had always feared the day when humanity might return. Now, it wasn't a fear. It was reality. "Send a priority transmission to the Imperial Council," Zalvora barked. "We must prepare for war." The silent Armada. Raylos and his crew watched in awe as the human fleet moved. They did not speak. They did not send hails. They did not demand anything. They simply moved forward, their ships forming a battle line, their weapons primed for a war that had been centuries in the making. One of Raylos' officers spoke in a hushed voice. They never stopped fighting. Raylos barely heard him. His mind was racing. He had spent his life believing that humanity was a tragic footnote in history, that they had fallen to their own mistakes. But now, the truth was in front of him. The Zorvax hadn't defeated humanity. They had only delayed them. And now, the reckoning had come. The last warning. A transmission crackled through the fleet. This time, it was not the Valiant speaking. It was a new voice. It was human. "This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the Restoration Fleet." A moment of stunned silence passed through the Galactic Council ships. A human admiral. Living? That was impossible. And yet, here he was. His voice was calm, but filled with the weight of centuries of pain. "The UNS Valiant was only the beginning," Admiral Kane said. "We have watched. We have waited. We have seen the lies spread across the stars." Raylos' throat was dry. This was history unfolding before his eyes. "The Zorvax Imperium thought they had erased us," Admiral Kane continued. "But humanity is not so easily forgotten." His voice darkened. "Now we will remind the galaxy who we are. The war begins." Zalvora's eyes widened in horror. "Open fire," he roared. The Zorvax fleet launched everything they had. Plasma bolts, missile salvos, energy beams, throwing their entire military might at the incoming human armada. For a few seconds, space exploded with light. And then, the human ships returned fire. The Zorvax defenses melted instantly. Their warships, some of the strongest in the galaxy, were obliterated in seconds. The human fleet did not fight with mercy. They fought with precision, with cold, calculated vengeance. Every shot found its mark. Every strike crippled the Zorvax fleet further. One by one, the ships that once ruled the stars were reduced to burning wrecks. And still, the human fleet advanced. There was no escape. The war that had been buried by history had finally returned to the present, and humanity had come to collect its debt, humanity's legacy. The void of space burned with the wreckage of the Zorvax fleet. Ships that had once ruled the galaxy were now nothing more than debris, floating aimlessly in the cold darkness. Explosions flickered like dying stars, the remnants of a battle that had ended before it had truly begun. The human warships, ancient yet unstoppable, pushed forward without hesitation. No mercy, no surrender. They had waited for centuries. And now, they were reclaiming their place in the galaxy. The fall of the Zorvax Imperium. On the shattered bridge of the Zorvax flagship, Dominance, High Chancellor Zalvora trembled. His empire, the mighty Zorvax Imperium, was falling apart before his eyes. This cannot be happening," he whispered. His generals were dead. His fleets were destroyed. And now, the human armada was closing in on his homeworld. A desperate officer turned to him. "Chancellor, we must surrender. If we do not, Zalvora snapped, his claws gripping the officer's throat. "Surrender," he snarled. "Do you think these creatures will show mercy?" His eyes flickered to the view screen, where the UNS Valiant led the charge, followed by an endless wave of human warships. No, he realized with a sinking feeling. There would be no negotiations, no peace treaties, no second chances. The Zorvax Imperium had betrayed humanity, and now humanity had returned to erase them. The voice of judgment. Across all communication channels, Admiral Marcus Kane's voice echoed once more. "High Chancellor Zalvora," he said, his tone icy. "We know who you are. We know what you have done." Zalvora gritted his teeth. Admiral Kane continued. "For centuries, you spread lies," he said. "You told the galaxy that humanity was dangerous, that we destroy ourselves." The UNS Valiant drifted closer, its weapons locked onto the Zorvax homeworld. "But the truth is this," Kane said. "You feared us. So you betrayed us." The Zorvax homeworld, once the heart of an empire, was now defenseless. The last Zorvax warships had been obliterated. The Council forces watched in horror. If the humans fired, an entire species would be wiped from existence. A galaxy watches. In the Galactic Council chambers, leaders from across the stars held their breath. The greatest secret of the last war had been exposed. The Zorvax Imperium had orchestrated the fall of humanity. And now, humanity had returned to settle the score. This is genocide," one of the representatives whispered. Another shook his head. "No," he murmured. "This is justice." The entire galaxy watched, some in fear, some in guilt, and some in hope. For if humanity had survived, what else were they capable of? What else had they hidden? The final choice. On the bridge of the UNS Valiant, Admiral Kane stood silently, staring at the image of the Zorvax homeworld. His officers awaited his command. "All weapons are locked on target, sir," one of them said. The Zorvax Imperium had shown no mercy when they betrayed humanity. Now, the choice lay in Kane's hands. Would he destroy them, just as they had once tried to destroy humanity? Would he erase their legacy, as they had erased his people? Or would he show them what it truly meant to be human? Admiral Kane took a slow breath. Then he spoke. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," he said. His officers looked at him in shock. "Sir." Kane's voice was calm, but firm. "The galaxy has believed the Zorvax's lies for centuries," he said. "Let them hear the truth from our own lips." A second later, the transmission was broadcasted across every world in the galaxy. Admiral Kane's image appeared before billions of beings, his gaze unyielding. "This is humanity," he declared. "We have returned." Then he turned to the weapons officer. His next words would change the course of history forever. "The galaxy will never forget." The galaxy held its breath. Every civilization, every empire, every outpost across the stars was watching. The transmission from Admiral Marcus Kane echoed through billions of communication channels. The Zorvax homeworld lay defenseless before the ancient human warships, their weapons locked and ready. And yet, the order to fire never came. The choice that defined humanity. On the bridge of the UNS Valiant, Admiral Kane stood unmoving, staring at the image of the Zorvax capital. The voices of his officers crackled over the comms. "Sir, awaiting your command." "We can finish them now, Admiral." "They never showed us mercy. Why should we?" Kane closed his eyes for a brief moment. The weight of centuries of betrayal, destruction, and suffering pressed down on him. The Zorvax Imperium had betrayed humanity. They had nearly wiped out his people. But he was not here to repeat history. He was here to change it. His eyes opened, cold and unwavering. "Stand down," Kane ordered. A silence fell over the bridge. One of his officers hesitated. "Admiral." Kane turned toward them, his voice sharp. "I said stand down." One by one, the weapons systems deactivated. The targeting locks disengage. The human warships did not fire. They simply remained, watching. A moment later, Kane transmitted his final message. "To the galaxy," he said, "we are not the monsters the Zorvax made us out to be. We do not seek destruction. We seek justice." His eyes darkened. "But do not mistake our mercy for weakness. We have returned. We remember, and we will never be betrayed again." The transmission ended, and just like that, the human warships turned away. The galaxy would never forget this day. The fall of the Zorvax, the rise of humanity. On the ruined bridge of the Zorvax flagship, High Chancellor Exalvora collapsed into his seat. His empire had been spared, but it was already over. The truth had been broadcast to the entire galaxy. The Zorvax Imperium's greatest lie had been exposed. They had betrayed humanity out of fear. They had painted them as monsters to hide their own crimes. Now, every species in the galaxy knew the truth. One by one, the Zorvax's allies abandoned them. Worlds that had once feared humanity now looked to them with respect. The Imperium, once mighty, was collapsing under the weight of its own lies. And humanity was rising. A new era begins. As the human fleet disappeared into the stars, whispers spread across the galaxy. They could have destroyed them, but they didn't. Humanity is stronger than we ever imagined. If they survived, what else had they hidden? For centuries, humanity had been thought dead and forgotten. Now, they were everywhere, watching, waiting, rebuilding. Their war was over, but their return had only just begun. The galaxy would never forget this day, because on this day, humanity reclaimed its place among the stars. Epilogue. The Ghost Fleet. Far beyond known space, in the shadow of a dying star, something stirred. Old warships, buried in forgotten systems, suddenly awoke. Engines flared to life. Weapons came online. A final message echoed through the silence of deep space. Standby directive acknowledge. Awaiting further orders. The Ghost Fleet had been activated. Humanity's true strength had yet to be revealed. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming next.